Good morning, everyone. My name is Conor Branigan from Sandyford Business District, and you're all very welcome to our Wellness Week and Movement Monday. It's great to see so many people from Sandyford Business District and outside the Business District logged on this morning. For those joining for the first time, Sandyford Business District is the largest business improvement district on the island of Ireland. It has 4 business parks: Central Park, South County, Sandyford and Stillorgan. There are 5,000 residents, 26,000 employees and 1,000 companies. There are many clusters. We've medtech, fintech, autotech, retail, hospitality and much, much more. I like to describe it as a city within a city. We've recently launched our Spend in Sandyford campaign, where we're encouraging everybody to support businesses within Sandyford Business District and spend your money here. This is our first event in our week-long wellness program, and I'm delighted to welcome Jenny Branigan from Total Physio, who are based in Sandyford Business District. So good afternoon, Jenny. How are you? How have you been coping over the last number of months, and how's Total Physio doing?
I'm well, thank you. Total Physio has been impacted like everybody else, but we've been lucky enough that we were able to open back up in phase 1. So on the 18th of May, with all the HSE guidelines in place, we were able to open our doors again, having been just doing online consultations for the 2 months before that. So we've been working steadily through the summer. We've had no outbreaks in the staff. We've had nobody, coming in and then subsequently being diagnosed with COVID. We've been very adherent to the guidelines with PPE, and we've had to change our model so that we're limiting patients coming in and we don't have anybody meeting in the waiting room anymore. We have a period of time after every appointment so that we can clean down the room, clean down the reception area to try and minimize the risk for our team and of course for all of our patients. So yes, we're continuing in that vein. So we're quite busy at the moment, but our capacity is reduced, which I think is something that's echoed by a lot of people. But just hearing you say there about the 1,000 businesses in the area of Sandyford, there's a huge change in the feel in Sandyford because a lot of those businesses are still working from home. So we see a big change in the footfall, certainly. When you're just going around to get a coffee or you're just driving in, it's much quieter than it used to be, which is sad to see because there used to be such a great bustle in the place. So I'm looking forward to when that all returns.
Yeah, likewise. So that's why I suppose Spend in Sandyford is so important, that campaign. And again, we're encouraging everybody to support businesses within Sandyford Business District. But just on this afternoon, Jenny, many of us, including myself, have developed bad routines or poor postures during remote working, and sometimes I can be found in front of the ironing board, and it's not ironing; it's using my laptop. So you're going to I suppose give us some hints and tips around routine and posture that will make I suppose the working from home and working from the office environment a lot more enjoyable.
That's it, absolutely. And I was talking about this on your webinar series back in May when it was, a big rush and everybody just grabbed whatever they could from work to get home to work from home. But we've had a bit more time to get used to it now. So we need to be planning more how we work from home, and we need to be thinking about that into the long term. Realistically, a lot of businesses will still be working from home into next year and possibly, hopefully not, but maybe even into the following year. We don't know how this will go. So, the initial rush of trying to change things and keep your business going has now evolved into how do we plan for this going forward? And that's a really key part of working from home from an ergonomic point of view. So we'll talk about that.
Great. Looking forward to hearing it, Jenny.
Great stuff. All right, Conor. Well, thank you for that introduction. You're very welcome, everybody. I'm delighted to have people signing on here so that we can actually go through all of this. And I'm happy to take questions, certainly at the end, if anybody's got anything that they would like to raise. So let me just have a look. I just want to go into my next slide, and actually I am stalled straight away. So hang on 1 second till we figure that. Now, there we go. Okay, so we're properly up and running now. So my name is Jenny Branigan. I'm a chartered physiotherapist and I work out of Total Physio in Sandyford. We're directly across the road from the Sandyford Lewis stop. And what we are concerned with is we're concerned with quality of life and people enjoying how they're living because they're able to move freely. They're able to do whatever they want to do, whether it's playing golf, whether it's going out for that walk up Ticknock Hill, whether it's lifting your grandkids, whatever the case may be. So what we're always concerned with is trying to educate people as to whether they are in fact injured or whether in fact this is just something that they need to look after themselves. Niggles and aches and pains that people get, they're all very normal, and how you react to these is really a key part of how you manage them. So we're always trying to help people to manage their pain and to react to pain, because niggles and aches and pains are just part of our way of life, and we have to learn how to manage them. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is whether your pain is due to an injury or not. How do you know when you need some help? How do you know when you can just deal with this yourself? Then we'll move on and we'll talk more about the working from home that Connor has already alluded to. And then we'll talk at the end about whether you're fit to exercise or not. We saw a key sort of change in people's behavior during lockdown, where people were either doing no exercise at all, or they went to the other extreme and they started exercising more than their body was capable of. So again, we'll talk about that later on, and whether you are fit to exercise and what your particular goals might mean as regards the particular strength that you need to be looking at. Okay. So what we typically hear are a lot of these kind of excuses or reasons for, why people continue to do what they're doing. Once it warms up, the pain goes away, so I must be okay. We hear that a lot with people who go out running, people who play sport. If they go out for a long walk, they might feel a pain in their knee or in their Achilles tendon, but as they get more supple, as they move more, that pain settles down. So they think, well, I mustn't have an injury because the pain goes away. So they might go for that 45-minute walk, they might do that 5K run, they could be sore the following day, and then by the time they go out to do it again 3 or 4 days later, that pain has cleared and they think, well, that's not an injury. Often we'll hear it's not painful, it's just tight, or it's just sore. And again, it's a very subjective thing. If something is tight, that's fine. You might have just overdone it a little bit. But if it's tight persistently, every time you try and walk, every time you try and, maybe go out into the garden and kick a ball with your child, if it's persistently tight and it's not settling down, again, that's something that me as a physiotherapist would be interested in. People are always worried when they come to see a physiotherapist about losing their fitness. So often that will be the reason why people will not phone us, because they'll think, look, they're just going to tell me to rest. They're just going to tell me not to do anything to allow this to settle. But in actual fact, active recovery is what we're always looking at. If people are in a routine of exercise, as a physiotherapist, I do not want to change that. My main goal is to get people moving. And if you're moving in a certain way that may be overloading you, what we need to do is we need to work together to try and figure out a way so that you can continue to work out and you can continue to actively work your body and stay strong and stay flexible, but without aggravating a particular injury. So we always look at active recovery. We're never telling people to sit on the couch. We want to keep people active. So that's a very important key point when you go to see your physio. Make sure there's some other plan in place so that you don't lose that fitness, but you don't lose that habit of fitness. This is one I really don't like. I'll just take a Diphene and I'll be fine. People will often take an anti-inflammatory to play golf, to go for the walk, to go for that run. Again, you're masking the pain there and you're masking a problem that could potentially be getting worse. So again, this is something we hear quite a lot of, and it's something that we really try to educate people beyond so that they can figure out, well, am I sufficiently strong and fit enough to do this particular activity, or do I need a little bit more rehab before I can do it? Joints swelling when you run or when you're active, but then settling down again. That's a sign of something going on in your joint. So none of these, sort of reasons or excuses why people keep going, none of these are really okay. And what is very important is that you start to develop a relationship with your physiotherapist. Whether it's me or somebody else, it's really key to be able to pick up the phone or email your physiotherapist to be able to say, look, this is going on with me. Is this something I need to pay attention to or not? And that relationship is very important, and that will keep you really injury-free if you have somebody that you can liaise with in as casual a manner as that. So knowing whether you're injured or not. Again, niggles and aches are part and parcel of life. We all get aches and pains. If you at the weekend painted your whole house and you're not used to doing that, of course you're going to feel that for a couple of days after. What we're always concerned with is this something that's indicating an injury, or is this something that's just a sign that you've done too much on a particular occasion? So we look at things like prolonged positions, and this ties in well with our working from home. When our body has to work in a way that it's not used to, we get little small micro traumas in the muscles, so little tiny tears. If you play five-a-side on a Tuesday night and you feel it on the Wednesday and Thursday after, that's as a result of these little tiny micro tears in the muscle. So what we need to do is make sure that these tiny micro tears from prolonged activity, prolonged positioning, where your body is then having to recover from that, we need to make sure that it does in fact recover, and that you don't continue to load it in a way that causes these little tiny micro tears to actually be maintained and to start to tear that a little bit more and that little bit more. So giving you a good example for that, if you have a running regime and you run 5K on a Monday and maybe a Thursday, and then you do a longer run at the weekend. If you decide then, just on a particular week when the weather is nice, you're maybe going to put in a 2-hour cycle on that Friday because you happen to be off work. And then it's such a lovely day, you decide that actually we might go up Ticknock on Sunday. So suddenly you're reducing the amount of recovery that your body is having, and you're also making your body work and be a little bit more active than it would normally be used to. So it's not getting the chance to recover from these little micro tears from your normal 3 runs per week. Suddenly it's having to cope with more activity, and these little tiny micro traumas in the muscle don't get a chance to settle. And that's where people start to get injured. If you start to notice that your pain is beginning to affect your normal daily activities, that's a sign that you need to call your chartered physiotherapist. If you notice that your pain from those activities, you know, your walk up Ticknock Hill or your cycle down into Wicklow, if that pain is not settling within 2 to 3 days, again, you need to be paying attention to that before you go and do your next activity. Obviously, acute trauma is very easy to recognize. If you fall over, if you get a kick in a match or whatever, that's easy to recognize the trauma that results in that injury, and you can get help with that very easily. It's the gradual onset, little insidious things that don't seem like much at the time, but they gradually build up to the point where the pain is not easing out. That tightness is not easing out, and you're starting to notice it suddenly when you're sitting at your desk, or when you have to stand up when you've been sitting down for a while and you think, oh, that knee feels a bit sore now. I have to hobble for 2 or 3 steps before I can straighten up. They're the types of signs that are telling you that you are injured. We always talk about red flags, and red flags are things that you really should never be ignoring. So we talk about pain that disrupts your sleep. So if you're waking every single night with pain and it's disrupting your sleep such that you have to get out of bed, move yourself around to get back in, to get back to sleep, that's something that we need to pay attention to. If you have back pain and any of the following symptoms, it's vital that you contact your GP. So difficulty controlling urine, numbness in the genital area or the back passage, numbness or pins and needles or weakness in the legs, unsteadiness on your feet, so a clumsy kind of walking pattern, and shooting pains down your legs. These would be symptoms that we class as red flag symptoms. So if you have any of those symptoms with back pain, it's really important to talk to your GP as soon as possible. And again, it's not about trying to scare people, it's about trying to make people aware, because we're fantastic at ignoring symptoms and rationalizing them and sort of saying, well, you know what? It'll probably go away in a week. I'll just give it another week. But there are certain symptoms that you do need to pay attention to, as I say, these red flag symptoms. So again, what should you do? The key thing is being able to speak to your healthcare professional, so your chartered physiotherapist or your GP, if you're in doubt or if you're worried about any of these. At the moment, there's online consultations available if you're not happy to go outside the home, or if you have an underlying condition such that you're trying to isolate yourself a bit more. So really, it's a very easy way to speak to somebody and just to get a picture of what's going on with yourself, whether you need to do something about it, whether you need to do more like see your GP or get further help with it, or indeed whether we can just go through some movements, looking at you as you're looking at me here, and go through how you're moving and some various movements that might help you with that. And in fact, even thinking about ergonomics, an online consultation with ergonomics is fantastic at the moment. That's something we never even thought about before. We can actually see how your work setup is, and we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. So again, what should you do? Have somebody that you can call or you can email. If the problem is such that your pain levels are high and you're waking at night, we may need to involve your GP with that. And again, that's perfectly fine to do that. But it's really important to get a prompt assessment, diagnosis and treatment if in fact what you're suffering with is an injury. And of course, we always recommend that you complete that until you're feeling 100% fine. A lot of people will get to the point where they feel better than they were and they think, oh, that's enough of that, I'm grand now. But they still might have pain the following morning after running with their child in the garden. They may still have pain for a couple of days after they play five-a-side. That's a sign that your injury hasn't fully resolved, so you must keep with your rehab program until you're at 100%. Incomplete rehab, we know, may cause a recurrence, and often then we'll see someone back with the exact same problem 6 months later, which you really don't want. Okay, so nice little brief bit there just on how do you know whether you're injured and what you need to do about that. Okay, so working from home, that's what we're all really concerned with at the moment, and we're trying to plan for. And of course, we're getting a bit more used to it now, and we do need to be thinking about the longer term, sort of how your work is set up in the longer term now that we know that this is something that's going to be with us for a little bit longer. So can you really be productive when you are in pain? I mean, that's basically the question that you're asking. Can you be productive if you're sitting there in a position like this girl where you're leaning over? You can see how low the laptop is in relation to where her gaze is. You can see how low the laptop is in relation to how she has to now round her shoulders to reach over onto that keyboard. You can see the position that she's in her lower back. So if you look at her spine, she's kind of in a C-shaped curve there. She's not sitting upright. She hasn't got everything set up according to her height. The table is low. She's in an uncomfortable position. You might manage that if you're just checking a post on social media for 5 minutes, but if you're expecting to work like that for half an hour or even longer than that, you're going to find very quickly that these little micro traumas in the muscle that we mentioned earlier on, they're going to build up very quickly, and very soon you're going to have pain in the neck, you'll have pain in the back of the shoulder, and that can develop down into the arms if you let it go. So can you be productive when you're in pain? The answer is absolutely not. So it's really incumbent on us now to really make sure that the situation that we find ourselves in, that we make it the best that we can make it. So are you prepared for long-term working from home? Again, in April, May, people were at home working in less than ideal ergonomic conditions. And it was a very abrupt change. We were forced to work from home all of a sudden. It was very urgent, and people just grabbed what they needed and they went about their business. But now that we know it's with us for longer, where is your office chair now? With a lot of the people that we've seen since then, they have a fantastic setup in their office, but whatever, like Connor was saying there, they're working from their ironing board at home because the kids have got the desks and their spouse has got a different desk and everything's been taken over, and the only thing that's left is the ironing board. So where's your office chair? What setup are you going to have to get you through these winter months? And if you don't have something set up, it's really important that you invest in that now. It's a bit clearer now that we are going to be living like this for the next 18 months probably, and possibly longer, hopefully not. But has your setup at home changed to reflect this longer term plan? And that's really, really important. So anything that you can take from your office, if they're telling you won't be back till next July or August, what can you take from your office to bring home to set up your ergonomic area so that it's the best for you? Our offices have always been traditionally very good at looking after this with health and safety officers, but now we have to take ownership of it ourselves. Laptops are always an issue if you're not using them correctly. So the problem with a laptop is that the monitor and the keyboard are joined together. So if your laptop is set up so that the keyboard's in the right position, then your monitor is not going to be in the right position, and vice versa. So how do you manage that? So we need to be thinking about these things and investing in a laptop stand, an extra keyboard, an extra mouse, so that you can basically have your keyboard down low where it's level with your wrist, and I'll show you some pictures on that in a minute, and then your laptop screen is up nice and high. So my laptop at the moment, I have it raised up on books. So again, there's really easy, versatile ways that you can make sure you have this set up. If you don't buy all the swanky ergonomic equipment, you can still do it very easy with what you have at home. You need to be thinking about what your position of ease is. So if you're working for a long period of time, we talk about movement breaks, and we'll talk about that again in a little bit of time. But have you got a position of ease? Does your chair allow you to sit right back into it? So you can see the seat of my chair goes right up above the back of my head here. So if I'm thinking about something, if I'm talking to you guys even here, if I'm on the phone, and I can put it on speaker, I can sit back into a position of ease, I can push back into my chair, and I can take some pressure off my spine, off my neck, off my head when I get an opportunity to do so. So think about what your position of ease is and make sure that you have one. If you're in a seat where you're sort of perched on the edge of a stool, how are you going to sit back into a position of ease? Do you have an opportunity to lie down on the floor, for example? Do you have an opportunity to stand up for a period of time? How do you get into a more comfortable position, and how do you build that into your day to try to break that cycle of sitting? again, what we're always trying to do is we're trying to prevent the onset of symptoms in the neck, in the shoulders, in the back. They're the main areas that we see when people are working from home and their ergonomic setup is not ideal. Sitting for too long. Now we're working from home. We don't have anywhere to go in the same way as we did when we were in the office. We don't have a colleague to just walk down and have a chat to. We're not walking upstairs to the kitchen to get a cup of coffee. We're not going up 2 flights of stairs to go to the bathroom. So again, how are we breaking that cycle of sitting? And we really need to think about how we do that. And we need to think neat. So our non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that refers to the tiny ways that we expend energy that don't fall into these categories of eating, sleeping, or doing sports or activities outside of work. So walking around the office, that's an example of that. Fidgeting, moving, even tapping your toes. Some people, they like to bounce their knee as they're thinking about something. So they're examples of these non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And that will help to actually maintain our energy levels. It keeps us a bit more alert if we move a little bit like that during our day. So again, trying to think about what you might do during your workday. What are those annoying little habits that people say, stop shaking, I can feel that on the next table. But actually that's quite good for you because it keeps you alert, it keeps you moving, and actually it keeps that intermittent postural change happening. And we're varying the posture throughout the day, which is what we're always all about. A little brief word on eyes and lighting. Again, in the offices, this is something that might have been looked after very well where you had like anti-glare screens and things like that, and may not be quite so good when you're in your home setup. The 20-20 rule then, very easy. Every 20 minutes, take your eyes off your screen, focus on something that's 20 foot away for 20 seconds. And that will help to change, how your eyes are looking at the screen. It changes the focus. It allows you to prevent the onset of tired eyes, the onset of irritation in your eyes, and dryness in the eyes. Because when we're staring at screens, they've estimated that we actually reduce the number of times we blink by, sometimes half. So if we blink on average 15 times per minute, if we reduce that to a half, think about how your eyes can start to get irritated. So the 20-20-20 rule is really, really important. And again, that doesn't require you to move anything but your eyes. So again, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to build things into how you're working at your desk when you're working from home. Again, lighting. Are you working in a very poorly lit area? Make sure that you're able to see your screen so that you don't have to come up right close to it and squint at it. Very, very important that you're thinking about these considerations as we plan for longer term working from home. I mentioned already that an online ergonomic check, that's something that's come out of this COVID that we wouldn't have necessarily even thought of from a benefit point of view. Plenty of people have been booking in with us online so that they can basically get a checkup on their home ergonomic setup so that we can very easily say, okay, so we can see how you're sitting. If you think about our friend here, we can see somebody like this and we can point out 4 or 5 different things that they can be doing differently. So again, if you're unsure, if you have a health and safety officer attached to your business, speak to that person and get an online ergonomic check. If you don't have the luxury of that, again, contact your chartered physiotherapist. We're offering this in Total Physio, where you can get your ergonomic setup checked through a virtual consultation and make sure that you're in the best position that you can be in. So I quite like this picture. I must point out on this picture, however, that the seat back should go right up to the back of the head, again, like I already mentioned. But other than that, I think this is a really good visual because it tells you all the different things you need to be thinking of. So we look at the seat back adjustability. So have a look there. We want that person to be able to push right back into the chair so that it's not completely rigid. You want to push back so that you're able to activate your muscles. That improves your circulation. And it allows you to get into a good position of ease when you're doing something that doesn't require you to be typing. So think about that with your office chair. Good lumbar support, that's built into most chairs these days. But again, if you're sitting on a dining room chair, that's not going to be built in. So you need to think about what you might do instead. You could roll up a hand towel and put tape on either end. So you have a nice cylindrical towel that sits into the back and keeps you in a nice lumbar supported position. The lumbar spine is the lower back, and we all have a normal curve in our lower back. So if you're thinking about how that would fit in, you want your cushion or you want your rolled up towel to fit into the normal curve in your lower back. And that will help to maintain good positioning of your back while you're sitting at your desk. The seat height needs to be adjustable, and the reason for that is that Seats in general are kind of generically targeted at a certain height of a man and a certain height of a female. So if you don't have adjustability, if you don't fit that cohort, that size, male or female, if you're too tall, if you're too short, you'll find that your feet might be swinging off the end of the chair, or you might find that your knees are higher than your hips, relatively speaking, when you're sitting down. So you want a seat height that you can move up and down, depending on how tall or short that you might be. It's very important that the pressure on the undersurface of the seat doesn't poke up into the back of your knees. That can cause nerve irritation where your sciatic nerve travels down the back of your leg. The foot support is one that's really worth paying attention to, because again, thinking about how these chairs are only targeted towards a certain height kind of demographic, if your legs are hanging off your chair and you're just touching the floor with your toes, you need to make sure that you have a foot support in place so that your feet can be flat on the floor. And that's really important. It seems like something that people wouldn't even think too much about, and that it shouldn't make too much of a difference. But actually it centers your body. It allows you to be much more relaxed in your position. If you think about sitting on your chair and you're kind of, just on your toes, you're going to be moving a lot more and you're not going to be in a stable position. So your muscles have to work more. So it's really important that you're nice and stable, that your feet are flat on the floor. And if they don't easily reach the floor, you must invest in a footrest. If you don't want to invest in a footrest, an old encyclopedia, or, well, there's no phone books anymore, but some big large book that you could stick in underneath. Again, that's really, really important that you think about that if you're finding that your feet aren't flat on the floor. Have a look at the space in front of the keyboard to support your hands during pauses when you're actually typing. So we don't want our wrists to be suspended in midair. We need to make sure that there's enough room on the table, and the ironing board is a problem here because it's very narrow. We need to make sure that you have enough space for your forearms and your wrists to be resting on that table. And you want your wrists to be in a nice neutral position. So if the wrist is bent too far up or bent too far down, you can get irritation along the wrist, and that can lead to a carpal tunnel syndrome, which is a nerve irritation problem. So again, very important, neutral wrists resting on the table. If you look at where the monitor should be, relative to where your face is, you're looking at 18 to 24 inches away. You also need to think about where you're looking on your screen. And again, we mentioned this already with the laptop position. If you're looking at your laptop screen or your PC screen, you need to make sure that if you break it into thirds, where your eye line hits is the junction between the upper and the middle third of your screen. So it needs to be at that junction, the upper and the middle third. So you're not looking downwards, so your neck's not bent, and you're not looking upwards so that your neck is not extended. So it needs to be nicely square on, and actually I have a better picture of that if you just have a look here. So if you look at this picture here, you can see in the middle picture exactly where it needs to be. So you're looking at not quite at the top of the screen. As I say, it's the junction, if you break it into thirds, between the upper and the middle third. Okay, so, again, we've already mentioned, never put your laptop on your knee, never work from your bed. So we need to be making sure that people get out of these habits. And again, I think a few months on, that's less likely to happen because people are a little bit more educated on this, but you never know. If you're trying to do something quick and you just pull the laptop onto the knee, again, if you find yourself in that position for 30 or 40 minutes, you're going to find that your neck will start to aggravate if that becomes something that you get used to doing. So be very strict with yourself. You need to be making sure that your setup at home is as good as your setup at work, now that we know we're in this for a little bit of a longer period. So again, a nice kind of picture here to show you the wrong posture versus the correct sitting position. And of course, we haven't mentioned working in standing. So, when we talk about posture, we're never talking about one ideal posture. We're talking about frequent changes in posture. So we're looking at, what's the best position that you can get into, and then how do you keep moving from that position? So look at our wrong sitting posture here. So you can see the neck is getting closed down here because you're extending your head and your neck right up like this. Your shoulder is rounded, your lower back is in this C-shaped curve that we've mentioned already. You can see there that the wrists are not resting on the table. So we talked about neutral position of the wrists resting on the table so that they're supported. You can see there that the head is bent down as they look downward on their screen. And then in our middle picture, we can see that that is all corrected. So we're looking straight onto our monitor. We've got our thighs are parallel to the floor. Our feet are resting on a footrest. Again, that's very important. Ideally, we want our seat back right up on the back of our head again so that we can actually push our head right back into that chair so that we're able to find a good position of ease. I love people standing to work. I think that it's a great way to change your position, but in the same way that sitting for too long is not to be recommended, also standing for too long is not to be recommended. What we want to make sure of is that people are changing their posture frequently, they're changing their position frequently. So again, if you have an opportunity to have, access to a sit-stand desk, you want to sit for some of the day and then you want to stand for some of the day so that you're able to move between those positions. If you're going to be standing for long periods, make sure that you're not standing on a very hard floor. So you're much better to have, a shock absorbing mat. If you can set it up so that you're standing on carpet, that's, again, much more beneficial than standing on a hard tiled floor. These days we all have wooden floors and tiles in our house, so do be careful of that, because the hard floor will have less shock absorbency than a nice carpet, so you will feel that in your back if you're in a standing position for too long. So just be careful of that. Okay, so we need to think about enjoying working from home. So previously it was about kind of the stress of working from home and how do we get past that, and we need to think about enjoying working from home and actually finding a way to do that so that our work days become a nice relaxing period of time. I think a lot of people have benefited from, how they've been able to rearrange their home life around working from home. Again, we need to keep that positive mindset going forward. So enjoying working from home means making sure that you're in a good routine so that you're in control of your work day. So getting up and getting dressed is the absolute first part of that. If you're working from home in your pajamas, you're going to have an entirely different mindset after a week like that compared to getting up, getting dressed and having your routine in place. A lot of people are no longer commuting because they don't have to commute. They're only going from their bedroom to their kitchen and then into their home office. So we need to think about what our body is missing. If you used to do a 20-minute walk and then sit down in your office, your body is missing that if you're not replicating that commute now that you're working from home. So we need to be thinking about how do we replicate the movement that our normal workday would have had pre-COVID. So between all the kind of going out for coffees, walking and talking, walking down to chat to a colleague rather than sending them an email now. Obviously now you're phoning people or Zooming them now. We need to be thinking about how do we replicate that movement now that we're working from home. So a walk before work is exactly what you can do to replicate that commute. If you used to cycle, go for a cycle before work. If you found that even getting into your car and then going off and having to walk from the car park into your office, even if that was only 5 or 10 minutes, your body will miss those little movement patterns that it was used to, that it's not now getting. A really important thing again for keeping that routine going is to set a work start and a finish time. So not to be changing how you work too much. If you're expected to be in the office between 8 and 9, you should be still trying to replicate that at this point. And again, that's even more important for finish times. It's very easy to let the day drag on and suddenly you may find it's 6 or 7 in the evening. Be very strict with yourself and set those start and finish times, because that helps to keep you in control of your day. And again, it helps to keep you able to look forward to something. If you just think, well, I've nothing on today except work, instead of thinking, well, I'm going to finish work at 5, then I've got my 20-minute commute home, and then you can go out maybe in the evening for a cycle or something. Again, that helps to keep your working from home experience much more enjoyable because you're in control of it. You're not just letting work fill the available hours in the day. Same thing goes for bedtimes. Just because you may not have a call in the morning, don't stay up late all night watching Netflix and then you don't get up till 10 or 11 the following day because you don't need to be necessarily on. Then you're starting to find that your workday will encroach into your normal leisure time. So keep that strict with usual bedtimes and waking times, ideally Monday to Friday. And again, turn off your computer when you're finished for that day. So you're really being strict with yourself on those schedules. When you're talking on the phone, a really good way to get yourself moving is to walk and talk. So find an area, or even if you don't have an area, you can march on the spot. Try and get into the habit of moving when you don't have to be on a screen. Try to get into the habit of pacing up and down your hallway if you're on a call. We've actually seen studies that prove that people concentrate better when they move more during the day, when they stay active and they're getting exercise during the day. So if you walk up and down as you're on the phone, you're getting that movement in. If you have your Fitbit or your, whatever wearable technology you have on you, you'll see that very quickly you'll build up the steps during that day if you make it a policy to walk and talk whenever you're on the phone. Social Zooms, some people love them, some people hate them. Again, the key thing is to try and manage things so that if you're on Zoom all day, you're not then on Zoom in the evening. Again, it's about breaks. We talk about breaks in position. We also need to talk about breaks in screen time. So again, when you're working from home, try and plan and schedule things so that you're not bombarding yourself with the same type of activity every single day. Okay, and then, again, we're improving our physical well-being when we're working from home. So we need to be thinking about how do we do that. We've talked about replicating the commute. Set reminders for what are you going to do today? What are the movement breaks that you're going to take today? So if, for example, you're working towards, say, a personal best on a 5K, if you're working on a strength regime, why not use some of your work day to actually use that time to actually do your rehabilitation. So again, set a reminder, and at 11 o'clock, instead of sitting in the kitchen and having a coffee, maybe go off and do 5 or 10 minutes of your squatting or your lunging or some of your exercises that you've been prescribed. If you don't have a rehab plan going on, what you can do again is take that opportunity to just move during the day. So in the same way that you might get a snack, think about a movement snack. So there's loads of different movements. You're only limited by your imagination. There's loads of different movements that you can do as a movement snack. So if you think about, again, we mentioned squatting and lunging, really nice way. If you do 10 or 15 squats, you're going to raise your heart rate. You're going to feel slightly short of breath after it. You're going to feel like your muscles are nice and warm. You're improving your circulation. And when you sit down, you're going to concentrate better. You're going to feel more alert, and your body is feeling much, much better for it. You've changed your position, so the posture has changed. You're ticking every box as regards looking after yourself from an ergonomic point of view. If you think about, lunges, again, the same thing. If you want to do something from a cardio point of view, you can march on the spot. You can jump up and down, get a skipping rope. So you're only limited by your imagination. But what you need to be doing is setting reminders during the day to do things that are going to help your well-being. So movement snacks are one. Hydration is another. So rather than bringing in a big 2-liter bottle of water with you and sitting there all day drinking it, just bring in a glass of water. Every time it's empty, go back out to the kitchen, refill it, and come back down to your desk. That is enough to class as a movement snack. That is a break from sitting at your desk. That is a break in the cycle of sitting. And the other benefit with that is that the more water you drink, the more you will need to go to the bathroom. So again, you're getting up, having to go to the bathroom and come back again. Again, it's another movement break. It's another change in your position. If you have a bathroom upstairs, don't go to the bathroom that's beside you, go upstairs to go to the bathroom. Again, suddenly you've got 20 steps upstairs, 20 steps coming back down. So you just need to think about these things a little bit more, and maybe take 20 minutes after this just to plan what are those little tips that you can implement into your day of working from home that will allow you to get a little bit more movement into your day. Lunchtime is a big one. Again, if you were in the office, you might have gone to the gym, or you might have met somebody for a run, or you might have gone for a walk with somebody. There's no reason why you can't do that now. You could still cycle up to the park and back. You could still go out into your garden and do, sort of a HIIT session. Again, try and replicate this in the same way that you would have done in your office. Think about what worked for you before COVID and make sure that that's being built into your day. Don't just go from sitting at your desk to sitting in your kitchen with a sandwich and then coming back to your desk. Get out and avail of the weather. If it's a nice warm day like today, even if it's not, you can exercise indoors. But think about your lunch as a natural break in the cycle of sitting for the day. Oh yeah, don't place everything around you. I mean, this is one that they always talk about from an office point of view, having the printer at the other side of the room, having your bin, under somebody else's desk. Don't place everything around you. Don't have it all too handy so that you've no reason to move. Put your bin in the kitchen, put your printer upstairs. Treat your home like the office, and the same ergonomic considerations that you would have had set up in your office, you must try and replicate that at home, ideally, as we're in this for the longer haul. Okay, and again, we talked about people being active from home, but you may be in the office. I'm in the office. I'm in my clinic at the moment. So how do you stay active when you're in the office? Certain people are going in and they might be in there for a couple of days and then they're home for a week or two. So again, you need to be thinking about that stuff in the office as well. So traditionally we would have talked about people parking away from the office and then walking 5 or 10 minutes to get there. Many people are not using public transport now. So again, if you're driving, try and avail of parking spaces somewhere else and walking to your office. Again, the movement snack advice is exactly the same. Refilling your water, toilet breaks, all of that is exactly the same, whether you're at home or whether you're in an office setup. Now, what is nice about this slide is that here are some examples of the movement snacks that you can take. So press ups against the kitchen counter, so easy to do. You can see somebody there squatting, you can see them lunging, you can see them going up and down on the toes, holding onto a chair, you can see them standing on one foot like a nice yoga kind of tree pose. So again, you're only limited by your imagination, but you must be keeping yourself active as much as possible, particularly as we come into the winter months, and we're generally less active in the winter because the evening times are a bit darker. So people who go for walks may not be as inclined to go out in the dark. So take the opportunity to do that during your day. Okay. So then what we look at then is we look at, are you actually fit to exercise at all? So again, we're always interested in this as physiotherapists, because people are brilliant at making plans and they're brilliant at deciding, okay, I'm going to work towards a 5K or a half marathon or whatever the case may be. And they don't sort of think about whether they're fit to exercise. So first things first, I mean, why do you want to exercise at all? So exercising is really, really important. And you know, it's movement is medicine, as we all say in our world. Again, my job is all about trying to get people moving. And there are tons of good reasons why people need to be moving. You know, it improves your cardiovascular fitness. It improves your lean muscle mass, which is particularly important for us when we're over the age of 40. We start to reduce our lean muscle mass. And that's something we have to actively work on, because actually, as you lose your lean muscle mass, your balance reactions start to get less. You start to get a little bit more frail, and then you're more prone to injury. So you do need to pay attention to that, unfortunately, from the time you're 40 onwards. We look at healthier bones, particularly important in Ireland because osteoporosis is a big problem. And it's not just a female disease. Osteoporosis is a problem in Ireland for men as well. So over the age of 65, 1 in 2 women will develop osteoporosis and 1 in 5 men. So certainly exercising with weight bearing, so skipping, jogging, dancing, running, anything where you're landing on your feet, you know, not just walking. It's like a stressful land. Five-a-side is great for this, playing hockey. Anything where you're running and actually there's shock going up through your body is really important for laying down bone. And that's particularly important, as I say, in this country. So you do need to be aware of that. That's a really top reason why you need to be exercising. And of course, weight training is a key part of that. So if that's something you're concerned with, I would certainly speak to your chartered physiotherapist about that. Exercising improves our balance. It makes our joints more flexible. It improves our sleep quality, which is very important again. You know, it helps our mood. It reduces anxiety levels. So in a pandemic period, it's very important that you're thinking about these benefits of sleep, because, you know, it helps to create this sense of control. It helps to reduce stress. It makes you feel like you're in a routine. So if you have a plan of exercise during the week and where everything else is going a bit crazy with level 3s and all sorts of stuff, at least you can control what you can control. And that helps to center people. It improves our stress levels by reducing them, and it helps to improve our mood and our sleep. Sleep is a really key part again at this point. It improves our concentration levels, as I've already mentioned. And in fact, it just overall improves our quality of life. So it's a very, very important thing to be planning exercise and making sure that it's part of your week. I wrote an article for The Independent back in January 2019. The link is there if you want to have a look at it. The top 10 reasons why you need to be moving more and exercising. So again, it's a really, really important thing that you're bearing in mind, particularly as we come into winter. And again, with stress and uncertainty around us, exercise is grounding us, and it helps us to feel better, and it improves our quality of life. A little bit more information on that, then you can see again why people need to be exercising. So I'll let you have a read through that. Again, we've mentioned mood, we've mentioned anxiety, we've mentioned attitude, and even, you know, think about you as a role model. If you've got children, if you've got friends who are looking to you and they see you out exercising, or you try and get them involved in exercising, getting them out walking with you, you know, when we're safe to do that. Again, it's a really important thing. If you see other people exercising, you'd be more inclined to do that yourself, particularly your children. If they see you exercise, that's something that they'll aspire to do too. And that's a really important legacy, you know, particularly again, during these periods of time. For children, they need 60 minutes of exercise per day. And now gymnastics is cancelled. All of their indoor classes are cancelled. They're not playing GA matches. They're not playing rugby matches. So you need to be, as their parent or guardian, thinking about the impact of that. And then if you can behave as that role model, you get the benefit of the exercise, but you also pass it on to your children, which is really, really key. So from a physiotherapist's point of view, are you fit to exercise? What we would look at is, what is your past history of injury? So we all have baggage, but some people have more baggage than others. If you have unresolved recent injury, you need to resolve that injury before you embark on a new regime, before you decide to do that half marathon, for example. If you have a past history of injury, you need to be considering that in your strength and conditioning plan for what you aim to do next. If you want to play five-a-side, how strong you need to be is going to be different compared to if you want to do a half marathon. If you just want to be able to walk 20 minutes, Again, depending on your age and depending on your past injury history, that could be a huge goal for you. And again, your strength and conditioning, what you need to be able to do, how you need to be able to move your joints may be different than for somebody else. So age plays a role, and of course your past injury history and what your goal is. So again, it's really important to be bearing that in mind. Is your body flexible or strong enough for what you hope to achieve? So whatever your goal is your body able for that? And that's where we come in to be able to help you achieve that goal, but bearing in mind what's gone before and making sure that we address that and try and maintain that, so that it's not something that as soon as you start training, it's going to come back to haunt you, and then you get demoralized and you stop training and you're back out of that kind of routine again. We always talk about load. What is loading? And you know, loading is something that's very important on the body, because your body can tolerate a certain amount of load depending on what it's used to. So if your body is not used to tolerating more than 3-5Ks a week, and then you suddenly want to do more than that, what plan is in place for you being able to achieve that increased load? And again, that's where we come in. A gradual increase in load tolerance will mean that you won't get injured. If you suddenly push your body and you think, oh, I'll just go for it and hopefully I'll be fine, again, that's a recipe for getting injured. So it's very important that you consider, what is your body able for, where do you need to be, and how do you bridge that gap between where you are now and where you need to be. This really showed up again during lockdown, when people were at home a little bit more and they decided to exercise more. So we saw lots of niggly tendons in people kind of in their 40s and 50s, where they would have gone for more walks than normal. They would have gone out and run more than they would have normally been used to. And their tendons weren't used to that load. And again, they started to get niggles and they started to break down. So your body has to be flexible enough and strong enough for what you hope to achieve. And again, thinking about what's gone before. So with that in mind, this is a strength MOT that you can have a look through to see, you know, are you strong enough? Are you able to do these things? And the particular thing to pay attention to here is how one side of your body is functioning compared to the other. So if you look at a plank push-up, which is the lady in the blue top on the bottom, we don't just want people holding planks for 30 seconds or a minute. You need to be dynamically moving. So if you're in a plank position, can you then press up onto both hands and come back down onto your forearms? Is that something you can do without back pain? Is that something you can sustain over maybe 10 or 15 plank push-ups? If you're not able to do that, but you're trying to run a 10K, you're going to find very quickly that you're not able for that distance. The side plank is the girl on the green mat. Again, can you hold that position without your back causing you pain? Can you hold that position and then rotate inwards and outwards 15 or 20 times? Again, is there a difference between what you feel on that right side when you do it compared to when you do it on the left? And if you're fine totally on the right, but then you do it on the left and you can't continue, you collapse or your back feels sore, there's something that we need to work on before you start to try and train for something, you know, this goal that you have there. A runner's arabesque is the girl in the orange bra top. Again, it's a brilliant tester, particularly for people who want to walk long distances, hill walkers, runners. You need to be able to maintain this on one leg and again compare it to the other side. It should be fairly similar. It's a good balance test. It's a good strength test. It works on your back, it works on your buttocks, it works on your hamstrings, it works on your calves. It tests everything in the body. Strong legs, of course, for walkers, for runners, for hill walkers. Can you lunge? Can you squat? When you do your lunges, can you lunge and maintain the position? Do you collapse through your hips? Do you bend forwards through your back? Can you do multiples of those if you're trying to run a 10K, or does your knee get sore after 3 or 4 lunges? These are easy ways to test your body to see, well, how strong are you for what you're trying to achieve? Buttocks, we always talk about buttocks in physiotherapy. Strong buttocks are really important. So your gluteal muscles, as they're officially known, but the stronger your buttock muscles, the less likely you are to have difficulty with your hip joint, with your knee joint, often with your back. The buttocks are really, really important. And particularly if you're looking at any sort of long distance training, you know, endurance events, anything like that, you need to be strong through the gluteals. So single leg glute bridges, single leg squats, hip abduction is the picture on the bottom in the blue mat. You need to have strong buttocks where you can maintain, again, as much of an endurance event on the right side compared to the left. If you've got strong buttocks on the right hand side and then the left, you can only manage, say, half of what you're doing on the right. We see this a lot in running people. You'll find that you'll get to a certain level, and then once you try and push beyond that, you'll start to break down because you haven't got the stamina and the strength and the gluteal muscles to maintain it. And again, we see that people can generally manage 3 or 4 or 5K of a run, but when they try to push to a 10K, if they haven't got strong buttocks or if they have an asymmetry in their buttock strength, that's when the breakdown starts. With the ankles, again, it's something that we see an awful lot of. Have you got decent balance? Have you got the ability to lift yourself up, lifting your body weight up and down on your toes? Can you do that on a sustained basis? Can you do 30 or 40 repetitions? Can you do it without holding on? And again, if you're breaking down within 10 or 15 and your calf is tight and it's feeling sore, how do you expect to be able to run a 5 or a 10K? So these are really nice tests that you can do at home. And again, when we talk about our movement snacks, you can use these as your movement snacks to try and build your overall strength and build your overall stamina in the body. Okay, so we're almost there, folks. So in summary then, physical inactivity affects our health. So there's loads of reasons to move more. And we do know that poor mental health is physical manifestation. So if you're injured, you do need to be seeking help. If you've got pain that's not settling within a few days, you do need to be seeking help. And that can be part of the stress reaction, particularly in these COVID times that people are feeling. So again, to bear that in mind and to make sure that you do know that what you think of pain is very important as well. So if you're worried about your pain, if you're very fearful about your pain and how you move with that pain, we need to talk to you, because what you believe about your pain is going to influence your prognosis. So please get in contact with your chartered physio if you need it. Get that relationship going so that you're able to talk to them quickly and easily and see when you do need our help. Be proactive. So don't wait until something is very painful and you have to stop running and stop walking and doing everything. If your pain is not settling within a few days, call your physio and see if there's something that you need to do. Exercise helps with everything. So, you know, this is Wellness Week. This is Movement Monday. Exercise helps with everything. So if in doubt, get out there and move. There's an excellent video to watch on YouTube by Doc Mike Evans, 23.5 hours. For all of us who think we're supremely busy and we've no time for anything, if you watch that video, 23.5 hours, it puts it all in perspective and it makes you realize that really exercise helps with everything, and we have to be building that into our day. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm very happy to take any questions that anybody has. As I say, Total Physio is the name of my practice, and we're across from Sandyford Lewis stop. So you can see our contact details there on our social media. Various handles are there. So please do get in contact. We love to hear from people and get that relationship going with your physio. Hopefully it's with us, but if it's not, make sure you have it with your chartered physiotherapist to help you be proactive with your movement going forward.
Jenny Branigan, Total Physio, thank you very much. There's some great advice. I'm guilty of many of those bad habits that you've spoken about. One thing that springs to mind is the laptop. You know, crouched over it, and I developed a bit of neck pain. And I think that was a result of being crouched over it, plus not having as much movement as I normally would have. I know in an office environment, you know, having a meeting, you know, the guys in the office will tell you I'd pace the floor. You know, I find it's sort of, it gets the juices flowing, and I like to sit up and get down. So I suppose Zoom and Microsoft Teams, you're prevented from doing that because you're fixed in one position, and you do tend to spend a lot more time in that position, you know, which causes issues. I suppose one issue that I have, I'd like to jump in ahead of the queue is, I wake up in the morning and I've neck stiffness, I've back stiffness, you know, I've leg or feet stiffness. Is that just old age, or can I correct that?
No, it's not just old age. And a lot of people suffer with this. So if your neck is sore, look at your pillows. What position do you sleep in the bed in at night? If you're lying on your tummy, it's quite common then to wake up in the morning with neck pain or back pain, because when you're on your tummy, where is your head going to go? It's going to rotate either to the right or to the left. So you need to be thinking about sleeping in a nice, balanced, neutral position. So get off your tummy, absolutely, if that's a position that you sleep in. Think about your pillows. Have you had the same pillow for 5 or 7 years? If it's something that's not new, you need to get a new pillow, because the shock absorbency gets lost out of our pillows as we sweat into the pillow. You know, in the summertime, you might sweat a bit more and you lose that shock absorbency. Pillows flatten like anything else, like you get a new pair of runners because you lose the shock absorbency. Our mattresses, they get a little bit saggy over time. So the pillow is no different. So if you've had the same pillow for years, invest in a new one. If your whole body is stiff, again, what you need to be thinking about is how much movement are you getting during the day? If you're not getting any, that's the first port of call, is to try and get your body moving more. And if after a period of 3 or 4 weeks, that's not making any difference to the movement, then at that point, I would consult with your chartered physio and say, right, where exactly do I need to go next with this? But morning stiffness is not something that you need to be just saying, oh, that's just my age. And particularly actually for people, if this is happening somebody in their 20s, that's absolutely not normal. So a blood test in that instance is quite is to be recommended, just to make sure that there's nothing underlying. Some of the juvenile arthritises and things like that can manifest in people in their 20s, and morning stiffness that takes maybe 40 or 50 minutes to limber up from, that can be a sign of that. But certainly if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s and you're just feeling generally stiff, get moving, think about the position that you sleep in, make sure your pillow is appropriate for you, and if it's not changing after 3 or 4 weeks, then definitely give us a ring.
Great, yeah. No, I think I'll invest in a new pillow first off. What's your position? I know some people use the yoga type balls over a traditional office chair.
Yeah.
Is there a benefit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you won't sit on that yoga ball all day. So the first thing is that you'll sit on it for a while. So it's allowing you to change your position. You might be on your chair for a while, then you'll sit on the ball, then you go back to your chair. It's like anything. Once it changes your position, that's what we're looking for. People like those yoga balls because they're obviously a little bit unstable. So they have to work their core muscles a little bit more than if they're working on a chair. So again, you're kind of more active when you're on those Swiss balls or gym balls compared to when you're sitting on a chair. If you try and slouch on one of those, it's pretty impossible. So if you're slouching on it, you're just going to roll off it. So again, it makes you sit a little bit more upright. But, you know, with anything like that, you don't want to sit on the gym ball then for 8 hours. You need to be changing your position regularly. So we say after every 20 to 25 minutes, you should be just changing your position. So whether you stand up, walk to the window and sit back down again, whether you go from the chair to the gym ball, whether you go from sitting to your standing desk, try and be changing it up, you know, within every half an hour, and make your gym ball one of those kind of movement breaks then.
Okay. Another question in from a keen runner. When they run on hard surfaces like concrete, they get joint and shin pain.
Okay.
When they run on grass, they don't have any pain. I presume that's just due to shock absorption.
Absolutely. So you have much more shock going up through your body when you're running on concrete. So for that person, you'd be advised to try and train on the grass as much as you can. Obviously coming into the winter time, then it gets a little bit slippier. So you may need to look at a track. Where's your nearest running track if you have access to that? The other thing I guess to bear in mind as well is how old are your runners? So if your runners are getting too old, and people will look at their runners and think they look perfectly fine and they don't buy a new pair until there's holes in them. That's far too late. You need to be changing your runners every 400 to 450 miles. So they will still look new at that point, but you're losing the shock absorbency within. Again, from running in the wet where they get wet and then they dry, or in fact just sweating into the runners. So if you're running a lot, you need to make sure that you're changing your runners relatively frequently, because the shock absorbency on the runner can make a huge difference to how much shock is going up through your legs.
Okay. And then I suppose a common question, couch to 5K. I know you discussed, are you fit to exercise? I assume, you know, you go through each of those stages and stretches. But is there anything else you would advise? You know, is it a combination of running and walking and just timing, you know, the distance for running and trying to build it up over time?
Yes, I love the couch to 5K because it's a gradual build-up. And when we talk about tolerance to load, the gradual increase in tolerance to load is where it's at. So the couch to 5K provides that. And a lot of people at the start find that it's too slow because they might only be jogging for 20 or 30 seconds, and then they have to walk for another minute and a half, and then they're back to 20 or 30 seconds. So sometimes they try and push too quickly through that. But depending on how fit you are, you can pick a couch to 5K that brings you to 5K over 12 weeks versus one that might bring you to 5K over 4 to 6 weeks. So again, you can gauge that depending on what's gone before and how fit you are. But a gradual increase tolerance to load is the way you prevent injury. And in fact, if you've never run before and you now want to run, you need to think about the strength MOT exercises, and particularly the buttocks, the gluteal muscles, how strong they are. Can you squat? Can you lunge? The stronger your legs and your buttocks are, the more you're going to tolerate the run. So again, it's very individual depending on your past history and how much running you've done in the past, whether, you know, how this gradual buildup is going to go. And again, you can get some help with that from your chartered physio, but the gradual tolerance is the key. So from the couch 5K definitely ticks that box.
Okay. Just conscious of time, Jenny, just before we wrap up, as part of our, I suppose, Spend in Sandyford campaign, we would like to purchase an online video consultation from Total Physio. Hope that's okay. And we have drawn a number randomly out of our virtual hat, and the winner is Lisa Hoffman. So Lisa, we'll be in contact shortly.
Right.
So Jenny Branigan, Total Physio, thank you so much for your time, your hints, your tips, your advice. It's now more important than ever because we will be spending longer periods working remotely. So it's been I found it a very worthwhile discussion. So thank you. You can stay up to date on everything that's happening in Sandyford on sandyford.ie. This presentation from Jenny Branigan, Total Physio, has also been recorded, so we'll be posting it on our website. Today is the first day of our Wellness Week, and we have two events tomorrow, an event Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, so you can find out all those details on our website, sandyford.ie. So again, thank you to Jenny Branigan, Total Physio, and stay safe, and thank you to everybody for joining us.
Thank you, Connor.